everybody, I'm Elizabeth from OurPaleoFamily.com. Welcome. Today we're making spaghetti squash mac and cheese. And I made this last week for a potluck at our homeschool group. And it kind of burned on the bottom, and I thought, oh, nobody's going to want to eat it because it looks a little bit browned. But so I didn't confess that I was the one that made it. And so I brought a couple of different things. And people loved it. People were saying to me when they saw me carrying out my Instant Pot, like, oh, you made the spaghetti squash mac and cheese? Oh, it was so good. So I thought I would make it for you. So why might you make spaghetti squash mac and cheese instead of regular pasta mac and cheese? Well, number one, we're paleo in this house, which means we really limit our grains. We really limit our dairy. I got cream and butter and 2 kinds of cheese. We're using all grass-fed dairy today, and we don't have this all the time. So we do limit our dairy. Some people can't tolerate any. We can tolerate some. But I try to use really good quality. So I've got my Kerrygold butter. I have a tablespoon of butter, and I'm just going to, like you were going to use a baking dish, I'm going to grease my container, which is really just going to serve, slightly non-stick, but mostly it's really just distributing this butter around the dish. It's going to melt down into our macaroni and cheese and make it extra yummy. So I'm just going to rub this all around. It'll have some little chunks here and there, and that is perfectly fine. So spaghetti squash is, of course, a vegetable. So you're using a vegetable instead of a grain-based pasta. So we all need more vegetables in our diet. That is a great reason to use spaghetti squash. A lot of people love the taste. It has kind of a sweet flavor. My children hate it. When they see spaghetti squash out, they run and hide, and they start bargaining on how they can make something else for dinner because they just hate it so much, which I don't understand. But so I do not make it for them very often. I will make it for me, and I'll take it to share with other people. So here I have my greased container. You see that really well? Kind of lumpy in there. It's totally fine. Do you like my Christmas apron that says fa la 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 on it? Makes me feel very festive. I'm enjoying wearing it. It was a gift from my parents. Okay, so, but I have heard some people say that they're concerned about eating spaghetti squash if they're following a ketogenic diet, which is high fat, moderate protein, low carb, thinking that because it's sweet tasting, that it is going to be too high in carbs. And in fact, I got the wrong fork. Spaghetti squash only has about 7 grams of carbs per cup. So a cup, this is a cup, I have a cup of cream in here. That is a lot of spaghetti squash. And by the time we add the eggs and the cream and everything to it, that's a lot of volume. You probably will not be eating more than a cup. So 7 grams is not a lot. I think that for most people, the keto diet, that's fine. I did show you the previous video, if my husband is posting them properly, showed you how I cook a spaghetti squash in the Instant Pot. And that particular squash, I maybe had 2 in that one, it was weird, like it was not getting done. And so when I cooked this one, we added a little footage there at the end to show what it should really look like, because it should come apart like strands of spaghetti. Although it's going to all kind of cook together in a casserole, so it's really fine if yours is not cooperative, like mine was not cooperative. So this is a custardy type mac and cheese, which in my opinion tastes really, really good, but also you're getting the extra protein and the extra fat, keeping the keto thing going with the eggs. And lots of calcium if you throw in the egg shells, you know, a little bit of crunch. Everybody likes that. Just kidding. So the tricky thing about writing this recipe is it's hard for me to say how much spaghetti squash because they are all different sizes. So this amount of squash, which is like packed into measuring cups, is about 5 cups of squash. It was 1 kind of average size spaghetti squash. Sometimes they're tiny like this. If you can only find tiny ones, use 2, maybe 3. Basically mine maxed out my Instant Pot because I put it in whole. I cook it whole for 10 minutes. And it was taking up all the space in there. So that's the size you want. Either 1 big one that takes up all the space or 2 smaller ones. So I'm just mixing in the eggs really well. So here's the deal with the spaghetti squash. They are really watery, and so I do not like it as a pasta substitute because I don't like that wateriness. However, I'm not going to cut this with a butter knife very well, I don't think. It's trying to be lazy. The way to counteract that wateriness is to make it in some sort of custard like this. So in my, gosh, is it in my book? I can't remember if it's in my book or if it's on the website. I'll link to it. It's a breakfast casserole that has like the bread casseroles that are really popular. It's like bread and eggs and sausage and cheese, that kind of thing. So I made a version using spaghetti squash instead of the bread, and it's really good. And that's when I first discovered this whole magic of the eggs with the spaghetti squash. So I use it in that way with that breakfast casserole. I've made a baked spaghetti, which I haven't published that one yet. I'm still perfecting it. But that's the same thing. It's like a lasagna where you have the ricotta and mozzarella and eggs, make that cheese layer mixed with the spaghetti squash. So I think it needs this sort of custard action to mitigate all of that wateriness. Then it bakes up and it's really creamy. So here I have an 8-ounce, might have been a 7-ounce package of grass-fed cheddar, which is going to be white, not orange. And so just shred that up however you like, big shreds, little shreds, it doesn't matter. We're just going to mix it in. And this is some, it's either Parmesan or Pecorino Romano, I'm not sure. I just want 1/4 cup of this, so I'm going to just shred it to the side, and I'll just kind of visualize 1/4 cup. I'm going to go ahead and add my salt. That will make it easier to get it distributed throughout here. So I want a teaspoon of sea salt. You might want a little bit more, you might want a little bit less, but that squash really takes a lot of salt in my opinion. Lots of pepper. You can use white pepper if you don't like the flecks of black, or if you have somebody really picky in your house that doesn't want to see the little flecks in there. I like the way it looks. You really want about 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, or, you know, to taste, whatever you like, more or less. But I'm just grinding in some. And give that a stir. Mix that in really well. I'm going to go ahead and add my cream. Got a cup of heavy cream. You could use coconut milk. You could use almond milk. Don't use a light coconut milk. Use the heavy, full fat version. I was using the fork to make sure my eggs were really beaten up well. Then I'm going to switch to a spatula. Remember that, I guess he was like a Creole guy that called it a spatulator back in the old days of TV shows. So we'll get all of my, or not TV shows, cooking shows before there was the Food Network. I want to leave a little bit of cheese to the side for the top, but the rest of it will get in there. And you could actually use your Instant Pot as a slow cooker. In my opinion, the slow cook function is real slow. It would take all day on high. It has a high and a low, or maybe it's less and more. Basically 2 levels of slow cooking, and even the highest one is real slow. It's going to take about 6 hours. So if you wanted to mix this up in the morning, maybe cook your spaghetti squash the day before and then mix this up in the morning before you head to work, then it would be great when you got home with just some simply cooked meat, a big salad on the side. That would be delicious. I'm actually going to dump this in outside of there in case I spill it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pressurize this for 12 minutes, and then I'll let that pressure come down. I'll open the lid, I'll put my cheese on, and then I'll let it slow cook until supper, because it's noon right now. We're going to eat this for dinner tonight. So I'll let it just sit there and get extra yummy on the slow cook function. But I just want to show you what it should look like and how long it takes. So I put my gasket in there, set my lid on. My valve was way off. You see that? It was just hanging on there. So push that down on, twist to sealing, manual, 12 minutes. And I'll see you back here in a few. Okay, so we've cooked for 12 minutes and I'm just gonna give it a stir. So remember, this is like a custard. If you were baking this in your oven, it would take probably an hour and you'd wanna stir it a few times throughout. So we wanted to go that first time, give it a stir. I think I said I was going to do 12 minutes and then put it on slow cook, but I really want it to be fully cooked and then I'll slow cook until dinner time. So I did the first 12 minutes. I did do 12 minutes, right? Yeah. And I'm stirring it all around. It's about half set in there. I can feel it as I stir. And then I'm just going to sprinkle on the rest of the cheese because I probably won't stir it again. I might feel like I need to, but I shouldn't. Let me just double check this and put this guy back on. Seal it. And we're going to do 15 minutes this time. Oops. Okay, see you again in a few minutes. Okay, so our spaghetti squash mac and cheese has cooked for 12 minutes. We gave it a stir and then 15 minutes more. And this is exactly what you want to see. It's nice and creamy and solid. Very custardy look to it. See, it's cooked all the way through. There's a little water in there. That's just because it's spaghetti squash. I gave it a little taste. It tastes so good. I'm going to just stick my fork down a couple places and get the water kind of available to the atmosphere for evaporating. And I'm going to turn it on slow cook. Let me scoop some out so you can really see it. It's this nice, creamy, eggy, delicious, yummy, hearty mac and cheese, but made with the spaghetti squash, which is a vegetable, instead of any sort of pasta. Even a gluten-free pasta is not the best idea. Okay, so for the slow cooker function, again, always turn it off. Slow cook, I'm going to put it on, whoops, let's see, there we go. I want it on less, 5 hours. That'll be just in time for dinner. So with the slow cooker, you can't use the Instant Pot lid. Let me show you what's going to happen. You hear that? It's beeping. It says lid. Because that lid is making a seal, and with the slow cooker, you need to not have that tight seal. So they actually sell a glass lid, which if I were going to use the slow cooker function much, I would probably buy that. But I'm not going to use it very much, honestly. For example, what I did last week when I took this to our homeschool group, I did the Instant Pot, the pressurized cooking, so I knew that it was done. I wasn't going to be serving anybody raw eggs. And then I just did the slow cook to keep it warm because I had to take it at 8 o'clock in the morning and we weren't eating lunch until 12. So I wanted it to stay warm, just continue to get extra yummy. So that's what's going to happen here. We're just going to leave this on the low slow cook, but it's already cooked right now. It's extra cheesy and good. I would like a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper, but we're actually going to be serving this with ham tonight, I believe. And so ham is typically salty, so I will hold off on adding salt right now, and then we can just add a little bit more at the table if somebody needs it. So that's it, everybody. That is spaghetti squash mac and cheese. You can look for this recipe written up on the website. It will be linked below. It's linked in the little card up in the corner. And I wish you well. I hope your December is off to a great start. See you later.